The cold night and the bundle it was a cold night. The kind of night where the wind cuts like a knife and the darkness feels too heavy. James pulled his jacket tighter and kept walking down the lonely road. The street lights here were old. There, yellow glow flickered and hummed, making the shadows move in strange ways. He was coming back from his late shift at the factory. His boots crunched on the gravel, each step sounding louder than it should. Even the trees along the road stood still, as if the cold had frozen them in place. Then he heard it, a sound, faint, weak, almost like a whimper. James stopped. He turned his head, listening. There it was again, a tiny, soft cry. Not a cat, not a baby, something in between. He stepped off the road, into the edge of the forest. The ground here was covered in dead leaves that whispered under his boots. The sound was coming from near the base of an old oak tree, and that's when he saw it. A small bundle. It was wrapped in strange cloth, dark silver, but with a faint glow that seemed to move like water. The bundle shook slightly, as if something inside was shivering. James frowned. "Hello?" he called softly. No answer. The bundle twitched. He crouched down and touched it. The cloth felt warm, too warm for this freezing night. And then the bundle made a noise, not a human noise, not animal either, something different. A mix of a sigh, a hum, and a soft click. James's breath caught in his throat. He hesitated, looking around. The road behind him was empty. The forest in front of him was black. He slowly opened the bundle. Inside was a child. At least James thought it was a child, but its skin was pale blue. Its eyes were too big for its face, round and golden, with no whites at all. Tiny glowing freckles dotted its cheeks. The child looked up at him. It didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared. And James froze. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the faint rustle of the cloth. Then the child reached up, tiny fingers brushing against James's hand. The touch was warm, too warm, like the cloth. A strange feeling ran through him, a sudden rush of images in his mind. Stars, planets, a huge shadow blocking out light. James blinked and pulled his hand back, heart pounding. What are you?" he whispered. The child tilted its head as if it didn't understand. It made another soft clicking sound, then tucked itself deeper into the cloth. James looked around again. The forest felt wrong now. Too quiet. Not a single sound of wind or animals. And then a sound from far away. A roar, deep, long, and unlike anything James had ever heard. Not a bear, not a wolf, something bigger, something stranger. His body went cold. The child stiffened in his arms, making a low, scared hum. James stood up quickly. The roar came again, louder this time. It was moving closer. He didn't think. He just acted. He picked up the bundle, holding it close to his chest, and hurried back toward the road. His breath came fast, clouds in the freezing air. When he reached the road, he looked behind him. The trees were still. But deep in the shadows, he saw movement. Something tall, very tall. It didn't move like a man, and it was coming his way. James's heart pounded in his ears. He started walking faster. The bundle in his arms trembled. The glowing cloth pulsed faintly, as if it was alive. The movement in the forest followed him, always just out of the light, always in the corner of his vision. James reached the next streetlight. For a moment, he thought he was safe. Then, the light above him flickered. Once, twice, and went out. He was standing in darkness. The roar came again, much closer now. And from the shadows, two silver lights appeared. Not lights. Eyes. James backed away slowly. His hands tightened on the bundle. The child looked up at him, its golden eyes wide with fear. The silver eyes in the dark blinked. And then the sound of heavy, slow steps began to echo in the night. The strange child James's breath made quick white clouds in the cold air. The silver eyes in the dark, they didn't blink again. They just watched. The child in his arms gave a tiny hum, soft but trembling. Her little fingers clung to his jacket, like she knew those eyes meant danger. Then, without warning, this silver eyes moved. They slid sideways through the darkness, not like walking, but gliding. The shape around them was tall, impossibly tall. Its head almost touched the branches above. James didn't wait. He turned and ran. The road was empty, the sound of his boots loud in the silence. But after 3 steps, every streetlight ahead went out, one by one, like something was chasing the light away. The cold deepened, biting into his skin. The air felt thick, heavy, like it was harder to breathe. And then, crack, a branch snapped to his right. Then to his left. Shadows moved on both sides. James spotted a faint orange glow ahead, his own house. He sprinted, lungs burning, holding the bundle tight. The child made a strange clicking sound, like she was trying to warn him. He reached the porch, slammed the door shut, and locked it. His heart pounded so hard, it hurt. Silence, only the sound of his own breathing. James pulled back the cloth to check on the child. She stared at him with those wide golden eyes. There was intelligence there, more than a normal child should have. Her lips moved, forming soft sounds he couldn't understand, almost like singing, but broken. Then something else happened. Every object in the room shook. The mugs on the shelf rattled. The table legs creaked. His old clock fell to the floor with a dull thud. James froze. He wasn't touching anything. The child wasn't either. But the air, it felt alive, like invisible waves were moving through it. Okay, what are you? He whispered. The child reached up, touching his forehead with 2 fingers. James's. Vision exploded. In less than a second, he saw things that made no sense. A giant sky filled with 2 suns. Huge towers floating in clouds. Ships the size of mountains drifting through space. A dark, spiked shadow swallowing an entire city in one gulp. Then he was back in his living room, gasping for air, his knees weak. The child stared at him as if she'd just given him a message, but one he couldn't yet understand. Knock. James froze. That wasn't a friendly knock. It was slow, heavy, the sound of a hand that didn't care if the door broke. Knock. Again. The wood shuddered under the weight. He crept to the window and peeked. Something stood outside. A tall figure, wrapped in a black cloak. Its face was hidden in shadow, but the silver eyes, they burned through the dark like small moons. It tilted its head, slowly, as if it knew he was watching. When it spoke, the voice was not just sound. It vibrated inside his chest. Give me the child. James's mouth went dry. He glanced at her. She was shaking her head fast, her eyes wide with fear. I don't know who you are, James said, trying to keep his voice steady, but you're not getting her. The figure didn't move. Then it was gone. Not like it walked away. Not like it ran. Just gone. James blinked, looking around. The porch was empty. Then he saw it, burned into the wood of the front door. A strange, jagged mark. It was still glowing faintly, like fresh embers. The child let out a low hum, the same sound she'd made when those silver eyes appeared. James knew then he wasn't safe here. The thing outside would be back, and maybe it wasn't the only one looking. He grabbed a backpack, stuffed it with water, food, and a flashlight. He wrapped the child in the glowing cloth again. "I don't know what you are," he said, "but I'm not leaving you here for them." He opened the back door and stepped into the cold night again. The forest behind his house waited, black and silent as the door shut behind him. A whisper drifted through the trees, not in English, not in any language he knew, and high above, blocking the stars, a huge shadow moved across the sky. The tall visitor, the forest behind James's house, wasn't just dark. It was wrong. No wind, no insects. Not even the crackle of frozen leaves under his boots sounded normal. Everything felt muffled. The child's small hand gripped his coat, her tiny fingers trembling. She kept looking over his shoulder, back toward the house, as if she knew something was still there. James had taken maybe 20 steps into the trees when the air changed. It was subtle at first, like walking into a room where someone had been smoking, but instead of smoke, it was pressure, thick, heavy, pressing on his skin. And then the whispering started. It wasn't one voice. It was many. Low, broken, overlapping. They spoke in a language James couldn't understand, a mix of clicks, hums, and deep tones that seemed to come from inside his head. The child squeezed her eyes shut and made a faint, rapid clicking sound, almost like she was answering them. James stopped. The whispers went silent, and then a shape moved between the trees. It was the tall figure from the road. No, not just one. 3 of them. All cloaked in black, their faces hidden, only those silver eyes glowing in the dark. They didn't walk. They slid like shadows painted onto air. One of them raised a long, thin hand. Its fingers were wrong, too many joints, bending in unnatural ways. The air around James seemed to ripple. His ears popped. His flashlight flickered and went out completely. "Give her to us," the one in front said. The voice was deep, but also wrong, like a recording played backward. James's chest tightened. "Stay back," he said, forcing the words out. The figure tilted its head, slowly, too slowly, the way predators do when they know you can't run far. "She belongs to us," it said. The child's hum grew sharper, faster, and suddenly the trees around them began to bend. Not break, bend, like something invisible was pushing them away. The silver eyes narrowed. "You are not enough to protect her." Something inside James snapped. He didn't care what these things were. He wasn't giving her up. "I don't have to be enough," he said, stepping back. "I just have to be human." The figures didn't move, but something in the air shifted, and then, as if some unseen cord was cut, they were gone. Not fading, not walking away, just gone. Silence fell again. James's heart hammered in his ears. He turned, ready to move, and almost tripped over something. Metal. Jagged edge of it was sticking out of the frozen ground, covered in dirt and moss. It wasn't part of a car or any machine he knew. It glowed faintly under the moonlight, the same strange, silver-blue glow as the cloth around the child. The child reached out and touched it with her small hand. Instantly, James's vision flared white. A woman's voice, soft but sharp, with urgency, spoke inside his head. "James, if you can hear this, you have found her. You must keep moving. They will not stop. I am coming. Do not trust the night. Do not look at the moon." The voice was gone as quickly as it came. James gasped, stumbling back. The child was staring at him. She knew exactly what he'd just heard. "What are you?" James whispered. She didn't answer. But the look in her golden eyes said enough. She was not from here. Somewhere deep in the forest, a loud metallic hum began to rise. Deep, steady, vibrating through the ground. It was the sound of something huge. Moving. James picked her up and started running. Flight into the dark. James didn't remember deciding to run. His body just moved. The child clung to him, her face buried in his coat, while the strange metallic hum shook the air around them. The deeper they went into the forest, the stranger it became. Trees leaned in unnatural angles, as if bent by a storm that never came. Patches of the ground shimmered faintly, like they were made of glass instead of dirt. Every few steps, James's boots sank into soft earth that pulsed once beneath his feet, like it was breathing. The hum grew louder, not just from one direction now. From above. James looked up. Something enormous slid across the night sky, blotting out the stars. Its shape was impossible to track. Part ship, part shadow, part something else. It had no lights. But every few seconds, pieces of its hull shifted, revealing patterns that glowed for a heartbeat before vanishing again. The child peeked out and pointed upward. Her golden eyes reflected the glow from the ship, and for a moment, James thought he saw fear, but also recognition. Then the forest went dead silent. The hum stopped. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. A deep, single tone, like the lowest note on an organ, rolled through the trees. The sound vibrated inside James's bones. His teeth ached. And then they came, thin beams of pale light, no wider. Then a finger lanced down from the ship, moving back and forth through the forest like searching eyes. Where the beams touched, the world changed. A tree they passed over instantly turned to a frozen white statue. The ground under one beam cracked open and fell away into a black pit. One beam grazed a bird mid-flight, and the bird simply vanished, as if erased. James ducked behind a thick fallen log, pressing the child close. One of the beams passed just a foot away. He felt a rush of cold so sharp it burned his skin. The child made a low clicking sound, her eyes squeezed shut. Then James noticed something. The light beams seemed to hesitate when near her, as if they were scanning for her and couldn't lock on. Above. The huge shape in the sky adjusted its position. The beams focused tighter, moving faster. They were narrowing in. James couldn't stay here. He scanned the forest and spotted a faint orange flicker far ahead, the old hunting cabin. He remembered it from years ago. It had a deep stone chimney, thick walls, and a heavy metal door. It wasn't much, but it was something. He took a deep breath and sprinted. The forest blurred around him. Twice, a beam slashed across his path, freezing the air in front of him into sparkling shards. Once, the ground behind him simply dropped, leaving a perfect square hole that went down too far to see. The child was humming again, low and steady now, not fearful. And James realized with a shock, the beams weren't touching them. It wasn't luck. She was doing something. They burst through the clearing toward the cabin. James slammed the metal door behind them, leaning on it while his lungs burned. Inside, it smelled of dust and rust. The only light came from a small, cracked window. The hum outside faded, but not all the way. The ship was still up there. Waiting. The child climbed down from his arms, walking toward the middle of the room. She pressed her hand to the wooden floor. A faint blue pattern began to spread out from her palm. Lines and curves, like an alien map or a circuit. In the center of the glowing lines, a small sphere of light appeared, floating in midair. James stared. "What is that?" She looked at him. For the first time, she spoke a single word in clear English. "Mother." The sphere brightened, and James heard the same woman's voice from before, but clearer now. "They know you are moving toward me. The ship above you is not theirs. It is mine, but they are here, and they will come inside. You have only minutes." The sphere flickered and vanished. The blue lines on the floor dimmed. Outside, James heard slow, heavy footsteps circling this cabin. And then 3 sharp knocks. The mother's voice. The 3 knocks echoed through the cabin like they were inside. James's skull. Slow. Deliberate. Each one sent a faint vibration through the floorboards, making the old wood groan. The child stood very still. Her golden eyes were wide, but there was no panic now. Only, listening. Outside, the footsteps stopped. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was watching silence. James took 1 step toward the metal door. "Who's there?" he called, his voice cracking. A low hum rolled through the air, not the ship's deep tone from before, but something smaller, closer. The sound made the hairs on his arms stand straight. Then, from directly behind the door, a voice spoke. "You have her." The words came in perfect English, but they were too perfect. Every syllable was identical in tone, like it was being read from a machine. "She is ours," the voice said. "Give her, and you may remain human." James's stomach turned. Remain human? The child moved quickly to him and took his hand. She shook her head fast. "No, no." Then she pointed to the floor where she'd drawn the blue lines earlier. James crouched beside her. The glowing patterns had almost faded, but not completely. She pressed her palm down again, and the light returned. The small sphere appeared, flickering like a candle in the wind. This time, the woman's voice was sharper, urgent. "James, they are not what they seem. The cloaks, the silver eyes, those are not bodies. Those are masks. You must not let them touch you." He swallowed hard. "What are they?" "They are the echoed ones," the voice said. "Once living, now hollow. They feed on thought, on memory. When they touch you, they take your mind, and leave a shell behind." The knocks came again, faster this time. The metal door shuddered. The voice in the sphere dropped lower. "They will break through. You cannot fight them the way I do. You must use what they cannot copy." James gritted his teeth. "And what's that?" A pause. "Then your human chaos. They cannot predict it." The sphere vanished, the light dying so fast it felt like the room fell into deeper darkness. The child grabbed his jacket and pulled him toward the corner of the cabin. She pointed to a small hatch in the floor, an old root cellar. James yanked. It opened, and the smell of damp earth rushed out. But before they could climb down, the door exploded inward. Shards of metal whined through the air and buried themselves in the walls. Through the broken frame, the first of the echoed ones slid inside, got up close. James saw the truth. The cloak wasn't fabric. It was smoke, flowing upward but never fading. The silver eyes were flat, like coins. And the face behind them wasn't a face at all, just smooth darkness that swallowed the light. The second and third followed, circling like sharks. James's heart thundered. He stepped in front of the child. "You are not taking her." The nearest one tilted its head. Too fast this time, jerking like a glitch. "You cannot win," it said. "Humans break." James didn't think. He grabbed the old kerosene lamp from the table, lit it with shaking hands, and threw it at the nearest figure. The glass shattered. Fire splashed across the cloak. But, instead of burning, the smoke seemed to recoil. The echoed one let out a sound like metal tearing in reverse and stumbled back. The others froze, tilting their heads in unison. James felt a surge of wild adrenaline. "Guess you didn't plan for that," he muttered. The child's eyes lit up. She grabbed his wrist and hummed sharply, the same hum she'd used in the forest. Outside, the huge ship's deep tone rumbled again, but this time it wasn't searching. It was answering. The echoed ones turned toward the sound, and for the first time, James thought he saw hesitation. From somewhere far above, a beam of body. Warm golden light broke through the trees, cutting straight down toward the cabin. It wasn't cold like the others. It wasn't destructive. The child smiled faintly, and for the first time, she said his name. James, mother comes. Humans fight back asterisk. The golden beam widened, pouring through the shattered doorway and lighting the cabin in a soft, unnatural glow. It wasn't just light. It carried warmth, a kind of pressure that pushed back the shadows. The echoed ones hissed, an awful metallic sound that made James's teeth ache. They began to retreat, their smoky cloaks swirling violently, silver eyes fixed on the child. Then, the forest outside split open. A figure stepped into the clearing, tall, armored, and radiant with the same golden light. The armor wasn't metal. It shifted and flowed like molten glass, bending with every movement. Her face was sharp, her eyes bright like twin suns. The child gasped, and for the first time, her small voice broke into a smile. Mother. The woman's gaze locked on James. She didn't speak out loud. Her voice hit directly in his mind. You kept her safe. That makes you more dangerous to them than you know. Before James could answer, the echoed ones struck. Two of them surged forward, their cloaks snapping like whips, silver eyes flaring. The mother moved first. She blurred, 1 second standing, the next a streak of light slicing through the air. Her arm swept out, and the first echoed one dissolved into dust. The second dodged, but not fast enough. A wave of golden energy erupted from her armor, sending it crashing into the trees. The third didn't move toward her. It moved toward. Jane's dotted slid low, silver eyes locking on him, its smoke cloak twisting into sharp edges. James had nothing but his instincts and human stubbornness. He grabbed the nearest thing he could find, the broken iron stove door lying on the floor. At that one lunged. James swung wildly, not in a clean arc, but jagged, fast, and clumsy. The thing flinched, its movement thrown off. The mother's voice echoed in his head again. They cannot predict you. Keep them guessing. Fine. He could do that. James backed up toward the wall, kicking over a chair. The echoed one tripped for a split second, just enough for him to grab the kerosene can, splash it across the floor, and light it with a match. Fire roared up instantly. The alien hissed and twisted back, smoke cloak recoiling from the flames. Another shape slid through the doorway. Not an echoed one, but something worse, taller, broader. Its silver eyes were ringed with black. The mother's voice sharpened in James's mind. That is a hollow prime. It carries the minds of 100 worlds. The prime ignored the flames, sliding across the cabin floor toward the child. James moved without thinking, scooping her into his arms and diving behind the broken chimney. Got any tricks left? He muttered to her. She looked at him, then at the prime, and hummed. The sound built into a low vibration, shaking the cabin walls. The golden beam from the mother's ship intensified, piercing through the roof in a single focused column. The prime stopped, its silver eyes flickering. It began to shudder, its cloak peeling away in strips. The mother stepped forward, holding one hand out to James. Throw it into the light. James looked at the prime. It was huge, heavy, and not exactly throwable. But humans. Improvise. He grabbed the rope hanging from the rafters, an old deer hoist from the cabin's hunting days, looped it around a protruding hook of the prime's twisting cloak, and yanked with every ounce of strength he had. The alien lurched forward, directly into the golden beam. The light hit it like a tidal wave. The prime screamed, not in sound, but in James's mind. The scream was filled with fragments of stolen voices, thousands of them, all breaking apart at once. Then, silence. The prime was gone. Only drifting ash remained. The mother looked at James, and for the first time, she smiled. Your chaos saved her. James collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Chaos, yeah. Guess we're good at that. The child stepped forward, placing a small glowing stone into his hand. For when you need me, she said softly. Outside, the mother's ship pulsed with golden light. She took the child into her arms, and together they stepped toward the beam. James watched as they rose into the ship, and then vanished. The forest was quiet again, too quiet. Until, from deep in the trees, came a soft whimper. The final stand, the golden beam faded, and the night swallowed the clearing. Where the mother's ship had hovered moments ago, there was now only empty sky. The stars sharp and cold. James stood alone in the cabin's doorway, the glowing stone warm in his palm. The forest around him was silent again, but it didn't feel safe. He looked at the ash on the ground where the hollow prime had fallen. It wasn't blowing away in the wind. It was shaping itself. Tiny fragments swirled into strange, repeating patterns like frost crawling over gloss. Then, as if deciding it had been noticed, the ash stilled. James stepped back. Yeah. Not touching that, he turned toward the path home. His legs ached. His mind felt like it had been stretched too far. And yet, from somewhere deep in the woods came a sound, a soft whimper. James froze. It was the exact same sound he'd heard the night he found the child. His first thought was panic. They left something behind. His second was worse, or something else found its way here. He followed the sound, moving quietly between the trees. The moonlight filtered down in narrow beams, casting long, sharp shadows. Every step took him further from the cabin, further from the safety of open ground. The whimper came again, closer now, almost at his feet. James pushed aside a clump of ferns and saw it. Another bundle, not silver this time, but deep black. And instead of glowing, it seemed to drink in the light around it. The cloth pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. James crouched, every instinct screaming at him to walk away. But it moved. Something inside shifted. He reached out, hesitating, for only a second, and pulled the cloth back. Inside was not a child, not exactly. It was small, yes, fragile, but its skin shimmered like oil on water, color shifting too fast to follow. Its eyes were shut tight, but its mouth opened, and James heard a voice, not out loud, inside his head. They took her. They took Mother. James's breath caught. Who took her? The voice cracked, like it was breaking apart just to speak. The ones without eyes. They are coming for you next. The bundle's body trembled, the air around it growing colder. Frost began to spread across the ground in a perfect circle. Racing outward, James looked up and froze. The stars were gone, not clouded over, gone. The sky above was a black void, pulsing faintly, as if something vast was pressing against it from the other side. The bundle's voice filled his head. Again, urgent now. You cannot stay here. You must run. They cannot predict you, but they can follow you. James clutched the black-wrapped figure to his chest and turned toward the cabin, but the path was gone. The forest had shifted. Trees twisted in new shapes, blocking the way. Somewhere in the darkness, silver eyes blinked open. Dozens of them, and then, one by one, they went out, as if whatever owned them didn't need them anymore. The voice in James's head spoke one last time, barely a whisper. They will wear faces you trust. A sound came from behind him. Footsteps. Human footsteps. He turned. It was the child. Or it looked like her. Same golden eyes, same glowing freckles. But her smile was too wide, too perfect. James, she said softly, You can give that to me now.